will be able to join us. We'll see. It's going to start recording now. There we go. Numbers are growing.
You waiting till 7?
Yes.
You got 3 minutes.
Yes.
Hello, everybody. Whoever's here. I don't see who's here. Only you do, right?
Yes. Oh, what do I have here? There's somebody asked a question already. I'm just looking. We have 28 people here already.
Okay.
Chat. Here we go. Oh, it's just a hello. I could have said somebody raised their hand.
They could have raised their hand to say I'm here.
Maybe. I am just going to put a little message in the chat.
Yeah, I'd rather wait for the questions at the end so it doesn't break my train of thought.
Yes, and I will be reading off the questions.
Okay.
And then there is a Q and a picture. There. All right. What's flashing?
What's flashing? Because it says something more.
Oh, that's, yeah, no, don't worry about that.
Okay. Oh, I see 35 participants.
Yeah.
36.
Oh, hello. This is Fiona from South Africa. Welcome. Welcome, Fiona. And Danielle, and Lauren, and Nikki, and Tamara.
Yeah, there's 38.
Yeah. Sandy from NL, Minnesota.
Whoa.
New Brunswick. Oh, there's some East Coasters here with us tonight. Yay.
Wow.
See, it's 8 o'clock here on the East Coast.
It's 7 o'clock here.
Edmonton. Will there be access? Yes, there will be. Yes, we will be sending these slides. There we go.
What'd they ask?
About the slides, and I said, yes, we'll just send them later this week.
They're up to 45. Somebody's coming on.
Yeah, there. That's my co-host.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Rhonda.
I wasn't sure if I was doing it right.
No, that's okay. We're all learning.
Yes.
Hello from Ottawa. Hello, Sue. Look at all these people. What are we at? We're at 44. We'll just give it a couple more minutes.
Okay.
But for those folks that are on now, we're going to ask that you hold questions. We'll do questions at the end. But you can submit your questions at any time. There is down at the bottom, there's a Q&A feature, and that's where you submit your questions. Don't submit them through the chat, preferably not, please. Although Rhonda can take a peek through the chat every now and then. But what happens with the chat questions is so many people make comments in the chat that we lose the question. It becomes it moves out of view. So if you use the Q&A feature, then we're definitely going to get to your question.
Oh, I need to get more comfortable.
Yes, comfort is important.
Comfort is important. It's quiet.
I'm going to put mine on mute while everybody's talking, and I'll just unmute it when I have to say something.
Okay.
I have little people and dogs, so sometimes they make noise.
Okay.
Yeah, I will do that too when you begin to present. And then also I will, I'll put myself on mute and I will hit my stop video so people can't see me. They can focus on your lovely face instead of mine.
Be my guest.
All right. Well, we have scheduled an hour, so I don't want to wait too long.
Yeah, because we could, what happens if you go over the hour?
Well, people will start leaving, I would imagine.
Okay. So I gotta talk fast.
Not too fast, but
okay.
Yeah. And we are recording this as we did the last time. And I can announce to folks that are here, our website updates will be going live the end of March. And the exact date will come out, will be sent out through Facebook and through email. And that's where you'll be able to find recordings of these webinars. So with that being said, I would like to introduce our lovely guest tonight, Robin Kessler. Robin Kessler is a certified clinical aromatherapist, and she received her training through Aromahead Institute and the School for Aromatic Studies. She continues to take courses in a variety of related subjects and is currently studying for her advanced graduate certification. Robin consults professionally with and prepares aromatherapy blends for practitioners, including medical doctors, acupuncturists, and chiropractors. She gives seminars on aromatherapy and safety topics and is the lead aromatherapist for the Stein Hospice Group and Right at Home, where she works with seniors to help support them with a better quality of life. She's written several articles which have been published in Aromaculture magazine and Aromatherapy Today. She also gives workshops on the usage of resins, especially frankincense. And Robin also has two Facebook groups, one called Safe Essential Oil Recipes Only, ! And frankincense resins and other tree resins. So without further ado, Robin, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Again, I would prefer if you ask the questions at the end, and I will go through everything as slow or as fast as I can. I do want to tell you that none of the pictures in this presentation can be copied without permission from my company, which is RBK Aromatherapy LLC, and Madeline Kirschkopf. I'd like to thank Madeline for helping me put this together. A lot of the pictures you will see are hers, and some of the information is actually hers. As you know, and you might not know, Madeline Kirschkopf has written a wonderful book and gives courses on hospice and pain management, and she's just basically my mentor. So let's go to the first slide. So let me pull this away so you can see it. What is aromatherapy and how it can help with palliative and hospice? I'm going to say more hospice because it's easier just to flow. And if I'm talking about palliative Palliative Care, then I will put the word in. Also, you're not getting the Latin because it's on here, but my Latin sucks. So it's terrible. So I'm going to speak mostly in English. So we will be discussing how do you get involved, what do you need via education, what kind of forms you need, which oils or hydrosols are recommended, what methods are used, safety issue when using essential oils, prescription drugs, what oils are not recommended, and dilutions. And then what do you do once you know all this? So, what do you need for education? You definitely need to be a certified aromatherapist. At least in the United States, most organizations in hospice will not even look at you unless you're certified. You need to know about the oils, the chemical breakdowns of the oils, the prescription drugs that interfere with the oils. You need to know all this. You need to know the safety ramifications, because you're dealing with people that are in hospice, are usually extremely sick, and you don't want to make them sicker. The other thing I recommend is to get Madeline's book on complementary nursing and end-of-life care. This book, which is right here, as you could see, is my Bible. It will teach you, and I still refer to it all the time. It'll teach you how to figure out what oils to use, the safety advice. She goes into CO2s. It's a hardcover book. And I believe I don't know if Amazon has it, but I know Nature's Gift carries it. And you could always message Madeline and find out where else you can get it. You might be able to get it directly from her. The other book that I recommend, and as a certified aromatherapist, you should have this book, is the Essential Oil Safety 2nd edition by Robert Tisserand and Robert Young. As you could see, this is the book, because it gives you all the safety precautions you need with interaction with prescription drugs. It is very, very important. As a certified aromatherapist, we know that you need to look up in the safety oil book which oils interfere with what medication, so that you are not hurting the patient. So what can aromatherapy be good for? As you know, those that are in hospice, especially those that are in hospice, are very anxious. They have extreme stress problems because nobody wants to be in hospice. Nobody likes the idea of having no control over themselves, and it's a very stressful environment. A lot of people are in pain, especially in palliative care, where they have all kinds of different aches and pains, and aromatherapy is wonderful for that. It's wonderful for uplifting and confidence, especially for sleep. It's wonderful also with people with dementia and Alzheimer's. With those that have skin conditions, especially, as you know, in hospice, they're not moving. So not moving, they wind up with a lot of different bed sores, or they wind up with extremely dry skin. I don't know if you've ever been in a nursing home, but you can actually walk in there with a bathing suit. It is so hot because most hospice patients are always cold. So when I go into a nursing home, I know to leave in below zero weather at the front door, usually at the reception booth. I leave my coat there because I absolutely do not need it. But your skin dries out, and it doesn't matter how old you are, your skin is going to dry out from the heat. It also helps with mouth care, and those that are transitioning and waiting to leave for this, when they're just about ready to die. Now, I'm going to give you some recommended oils. We're going to go through the list of recommended oils. And these are the oils that are in Madeline's book. And also almost all these oils I use. And I usually make it in blends. I don't usually use one particular oil. So bergamot is wonderful for anxiety and tension. And as you know, bergamot is phototoxic, but if they're in a nursing home, they're usually not up against the window. So, and if they are, you're not going to use that oil. But it is wonderful for anxiety and stress. Bergamot mint is a favorite of mine. I found it accidentally. Somebody recommended it to me, and it's wonderful for calming. Roman chamomile is wonderful for stress, relaxation, and sleep. It makes one think of wildflowers and herbs, and it takes away the frustration. You know, when we drink Roman chamomile tea, it does that. Well, it does this also. Lavender, as you know, is wonderful for balance and sleep, room purification and relaxation, but lavender can also be stimulating. So you have to be very careful when you use lavender because it can actually work reverse. Mandarin is good for a sunny, cheerful environment, and it can also help with cramps. Sweet marjoram, I like this one a lot, is a good support for loved ones. I also make inhalers for those of the family members, not just the ones that are ill. And it relaxes the muscles. It's great for grief, and it's excellent for when a person is ready to let go. And there are more. Scotch Plains gives you an atmosphere of tranquility, and it allows you to breathe better. As you know, the Scotch Plain is a conifer, and it always helps with congestion, but for those in hospice, it actually opens up the airways a little bit. Rosemary CT verbonin is what we use more than the officials because it is much lighter. It's not as strong as the main rosemary, but it's excellent for memory and clarity for those that have dementia, and even those that have Alzheimer's. I have used it quite a bit, and it doesn't stop the disease, but it might give them enough of a clarity for a few minutes, which will bring down some of the stress level. Coriander seed is also wonderful. I had gone to the AAA conference and I listened to Pamela, I just went blank on her last name, but she recommends coriander seed, and I said, this was interesting. I'm going to try it, and I did. And it works just as nice. It's even milder than rosemary. It does help with memory, and it does bring down frustration. So it's really nice. Neroli is, as we all know, is for anxious and stress. It smells like orange blossoms, but it costs a fortune. So I use it maybe a drop. Very, very carefully, and it's also on the endangered species list, so I don't like to use it a lot. But I did find Pentagran neroli, which is co-distilled. It's wonderful for anxiety and stress, costs half the price of neroli and works the exact same way. So I use the Pentagran neroli more than I actually use the neroli, and I'm actually, I guess, saving the environment a little bit. Frankincense Boswellia neglecta is absolutely wonderful for calming and anxiety. It's one of the best varieties for stress and anxiety, and it's very balancing. So I use it a lot. I use it a lot for hydrosol. I use it a lot for, I infuse it, and I use it because Neglecta also opens up the lungs, not for congestion, but those that might have lung cancer where their lungs are very tight. If you massage it right here, it basically just untightens the lung capacity, which allows them to breathe a little bit better. And it does work because I've used it. Patchouli is grounding for sleep, and I use it a lot for men who don't like the floral smells, because a lot of the men don't like rose and a lot of them do. You basically have to figure out who likes what. Sweet orange, as you know, is very calming. It gives a sunny atmosphere. Frankincense, Boswellia Qatari, is excellent for skin conditions. It is balancing, and it can bring peace and harmony, especially for those that are transitioning. Myrrh is excellent for wound healing, especially when the resin is used. It's great for bed sores and mouth care, but it has to be used with caution for those on blood thinners or those who have heart conditions. Cypress is grounding and calming and is wonderful for emotional changes. Sandalwood also is calming and relaxing. Ginger CO2 is interesting. Madeline turned me on to it because I was using regular ginger, and I found that the CO2 actually worked better. It seems to be, you use less. It's not as strong as a smell as the regular ginger, so it's easier for hospice patients to handle it. It's, as you know, it's great for nausea. It's great for muscle pain and stiffness. It's wonderful for the body, the mind, and the soul. Rose is mostly used for grief. For those families trying to cope with those that they just lost. So I use rose a lot, and you use very little because, as you know, when you smell rose, it's extremely strong. So you don't want it to be overpowering and make them nauseous. You just want to keep them calm enough to want to transition peacefully. Cedarwood I like cedarwood. I use cedarwood a lot for men. They seem to like the smell of cedarwood. It reminds them of their shaving cream. The same thing with sandalwood. I will do a blend of sandalwood, patchouli, and cedarwood, and it's very calming. And the men seem to tell me it smells like when they used to put the aftershave on them when they shaved their face. So, and it helps them relax. The advantage of a lot of these oils is when we get into how to do it all, is that when you find out what oils they really like and you use those specific oils, it is mind-boggling what it does for them. And of course, now we need the carrier oils, because you can't use the oils neat, so you need a carrier oil. For the essential oils, the oils that I found work the best, just for these to make a blend for the essential oils, is almond oil, because it's dry and it's good for dry and sensitive skin. Tamino oil is wonderful for inflamed skin, itchy skin, and it actually works on muscles and bed sores. Avocado oil is wonderful for dry skin and very scaly skin. Jojoba oil I like a lot because of the sebum in your skin. It acts just like that, and it nourishes the skin. I also use fractionated coconut oil, even though it's not on the list, but I prefer to use the others when I can. But for those who need massaging, I will use shea butter. for itchy and dry skin, and I happen to have some. I don't know if you could see it, but that's shea butter. And I whip it and I put it on their skin, and it makes them, I do shea butter and coconut and a little jojoba. And then I blend it, mix it all together. I get the shea to melt. And then I put it in the refrigerator to get a little waxy. And then I blend it. And then I put it in a jar. And it's wonder. I use it for myself, and I have very sensitive skin, so it does wonders for them. Coconut butter also is very good for itchy and dry skin. Kabanga butter is shea butter. It's just a different, one of them is, and I don't remember which way it goes, but one of them is a nut and one of them is on the tree. So, but it comes from the same tree. So, and the Kabanga butter is more of a yellow. So it's excellent for inflamed and itchy skin. Calendula oil, I will also use in a blend, and I will use it by itself because it's very, very good for itchy skin. And I make my own lavender infused oil, and I usually make it with jojoba, and that's excellent for skin. Whoop, okay. Now we all know, right, because we're all aromatherapists here, that you dilute all the essential oils. You do not use them neat. You know what could happen when you use them neat. You either get sensitized or you will get a massive rash. And the problem is you're dealing with people where their immune system is compromised to begin with. So you definitely don't want to use it neat, because now you're creating more problems. So you got to be extremely careful. You have to go by the dilution rate, because we all seen a chart of dilution rates. Well, you have to decide on the oil in question, the age of the patient. In hospice, you can get anywhere from 2 years old up to 99 years old. In palliative care, it's usually seniors. So in seniors, my recommendation is 65 and over is a 1% dilution. And those under could be anywhere between 2 and 5, depending on their age. And of course, the condition of the patient. If they're falling apart, you're not going to use a 10% dilution. So you need to be very careful. And you, as we put on the right side, you need to read, you need to study, you need to be an expert, or you can ask me. Now, the methods of how do you do it? How do you use the essential oil? Well, the first one we're going to go into is diffusing. Now, as you know, in diffusing, you can only use it up to 1 hour, because if you use it more than 1 hour, the body shuts it off and it doesn't work. The problem is with the diffuse, there's 2 problems. One, in a nursing home, they're stolen. We have gone through, we bought 20 of them, we only have 2 left. Family members steal them, and staff in the nursing home steals them. So you run into that problem. The other problem is who's going to shut it off. So you don't want this thing running all day. You're not going to be there all day, and you don't know who's going to be there all day. So diffusers I only use if it's hospice or palliative care in their home. This way, somebody in the family member can remember, can set a timer, can set Alexa. Someone can set something to turn this off if it doesn't have a timer on it in an hour. So that's what I consider for diffusing. For the second thing we use is a patch, and I'm actually going to show it to you. Hopefully I could get it close enough. This is the patch. Whoops. Okay, this company, BioTease, is wonderful. I've gone through 6 patches of 6 different companies, and none of them stay on. This is the only one that actually stays on. When you take it apart, it looks like this. And on the back this is a water-soluble a gel, and it's made out of water. It's actually water, and it's very hypoenergetic, and they do it in hospitals for infants and preemies. So if it could go on their skin, it could definitely go on hospice, because their skin is about equal to a preemie. And what you do is you place 2 drops or even 1 drop of oil on here, and you put it right on their shoulder, just like that. And this way they can smell it. Now, believe it or not, because I've tested these all, this one can stay on you for 2 weeks. Not that you're going to leave it on the same clothing for 2 weeks, but you could take it off, and it has a plastic back, and you put it back on the plastic back, and when the person changes their clothing, it can be put back on. I actually took this off. You see the white furniture behind me? It's been sitting up there for 5 months. So if it could stay up there for 5 months, it could definitely stay on a person. I normally put it on their clothing, not on their chest, because some people just feel uncomfortable. But on here, it doesn't hurt because it's on your clothing. And it could stay there and be taken off daily. And the same one can be put on. And it stays for about 2 weeks. And the patch itself will stay for 2 weeks. From what the company has told me, it's a slow moving patch. So it never gets on the person at all, because the back is very thick, and it's slowly over a 12-hour period will go through, so that the person actually is smelling it all the time. And I use this mostly when they're transitioning, when they're at the point of dying. And this way it could be put on. Usually when a person is dying, they don't bother them. They don't take off their clothing. They might change their diaper, but they don't take their clothing off. And this is wonderful because they're constantly getting the smell, which allows them to let go a little easier. I also use it, I don't use it in a nursing home, because they take off their clothing and then they throw it in the hamper and they forget to take this off. And this runs between, depending, I believe it runs somewhere between $2 and $3. And if you're changing this a day, it could get very expensive. So I use it a lot for those that are home. So I use it for transitioning and those that are in a house, because especially in palliative care, you can leave it on here all day. And if the person is capable of, they have all their wits about them, they can peel it off themselves when they had enough. So, but I really like this. There's another way of doing it, and I'm going to take it out. And this one, let me see if I can get it open, can go on a, whoops. Okay, this one could be hung up, and it has a cloth that goes inside it, and you can put drops on the cloth. The only thing I don't like about this one, I started with this one first, but I didn't like it because it doesn't hold the smell. So now I use it myself as an air freshener, because I really didn't like it. So if somebody tries to convince you to get this, don't. So I'm just showing it to you. The other way is an inhaler, and all of you know how to use an inhaler. We don't use inhalers much in hospice because most of the time the patient cannot use their hands, they're not coherent, they're semi-conscious, or they're not conscious at all. So an inhaler is a waste. An inhaler is used mostly in palliative because they're alive, more alive, and they can put it up to their nose and use it, and they understand basically how to use it when you give them instructions. I use it a lot for the family members because I will make a anti-stress inhaler for the family member, because sometimes the family member is going through it worse than the person who's actually in hospice, and sometimes it feeds off of the person that's in hospice, which makes them worse. So inhalers are nice. Topical, as you know, is to be used with a carrier oil. I don't use topical a lot because it's harder to control. I don't, even though I put the directions on the wall, somehow they manage to use more than they're supposed to. So I try to only use topical where there's more intervention. Otherwise, I try to stay away from topical. The thing that I actually like is a spray bottle. This is wonderful because almost everybody can use this. What I basically put in here is I put vodka in here. Vodka is a stimulant, depending on what oils you use, or it could be a calmer, depending on what oils you use. Vodka mixes the essential oils a little better, but I don't trust it. So what I do is I put in a couple of drops of liquid Castile soap, because the liquid Castile soap will definitely mix the essential oil. I tried putting in a little bit of a carrier oil, but I found that the carrier oil was getting stuck and the spray bottle wasn't sprayed, but somehow it manages to spray with the soap in it. And I will put the patient's name on it. I will put shake well before use, and I will give them instructions again on how to use it. And I mostly use it I tell them to use it 3 or 4 times a day, and it's sprayed on their shoulder. It's sprayed around on their pillow when they're not there. So if you're in the bed, if you have the pillow in front of you, you just lightly spray. You don't douse them with it. You lightly spray the pillow and shake it. Then you could put it back under them or on if they're sitting in a wheelchair. And almost all hospice patients pull up their blanket always up to the top because they need it for security and for warmth. And I spray the top of the blanket. So they're getting enough so that it will last somewhere between 3 and 4 hours, sometimes even longer, depending on what oil you use. And I only use 2 ounces because what if this doesn't work? Then I have to try using a different set of blends. And at that point, if I put it in bigger, then you're wasting it. So I try to use a 2-ounce bottle, and this way, hopefully it'll work. I was using a 1-ounce bottle, but it was so tiny that they were losing it. And I put it inside the drawer of their dresser, and the nurse on staff knows it's there. Now we got hydrosols. I love hydrosols. Hydrosols are wonderful for those that are on oxygen. The essential oil, as you know, is flammable, and I'd rather not use it in a place where there's oxygen because I have no idea where they're putting the oxygen and when they're using it. So I really don't want them spraying the essential oil combination if they have oxygen on their nose. So I use the hydrosol, which is so much lighter, and sometimes I will even cut the hydrosol in half and put distilled water in it if I find that they are on oxygen, because I'm very anal and I don't want to take any chances. But I actually use this for those that are not on oxygen also. If those that have extremely sensitive skin or don't like a heavier aroma, then I will use this too, and they actually work well. Yarrow is excellent for itchy skin. Blue chamomine is also good for itchy skin and inflammation. Lavender soothes the skin. As you know, it's easy to fall asleep. Witch hazel is wonderful. It's an antiseptic. It's good for burns and insect bites. And I had a nurse ask me for it, and I made her a bottle of the witch hazel, and she actually sprayed it on a patient's hemorrhoids, and it actually helped. So I actually made her day. The helichrysum supports healing of skin and bruising. You must be careful with helichrysum, whether you're using helichrysum in the essential oil or if you're using it in the hydrosol, because it's got to be very careful with those on blood thinners or aspirin, because it interferes with the medication. So you need to be very careful with that oil. Rosemary verbonin is wonderful for memory and clarity. Peppermint relieves pain and cramping and cooling. It can be used for headaches where regular essential oil might be too strong for a headache. The hydrosols actually might work. Rose is relaxing and calming, and it's very skin soothing. Neroli is excellent for stress, anxiety. In fact, there's a company that I use for neroli. You could swear that his hydrosol is the real deal. It is very strong, and I actually have to cut it because it is so strong, but it's wonderful and half the price of neroli. So I use it a lot. Frankincense, Passuela neglecta is excellent for anxiety and stress. You can mix them all together and make one blend, just like what you do with essential oils. You don't have to use them all by themselves, and they are absolutely wonderful. As I had said before, do not use the essential oil neat. You need proper absorption on the skin. If you do, if you use it neat, you'll get skin rashes. And so you want to be very, very careful. Again, you want to read, you want to study, and you want to become an expert, because you're dealing with people that are extremely sick. And I'm not showing you these pictures to scare you, but this is what could happen if you use the essential oils neat. And as I said, you're dealing with people that have very bad immune systems. So you need to be extremely careful. You need to check everything. I want to get a little bit into resins, because I'm very big into resins. A lot of you know about the frankincense group I run. And I found that resins are absolutely wonderful for those in hospice. They have very high anti-inflammatory properties, and when you make it into when you make it into when you infuse it and make it into a salve, it does wonderful. The resin actually is very similar to a sap. When the tree is cut, it's called striped. It releases the sap is more to protect itself, because it thinks it has a wound and it's covering the wound. It also does it if it gets insects on the tree. To get rid of the insects, it puts out this sap, and when it hits the air, it gets hard. So it basically turns the insect into a statue, and it doesn't hurt them. There are 18 different species of frankincense, and you should learn about the different therapeutic properties. Each one has a different one. I'm not going to go into it tonight because this is not a resin course, but if you join the frankincense group that I run, you can learn it all there. But what I do is I make a salve, and you can see it here, and I'll take a little bit out of my finger so you can see it. Whoops, gotta get the camera. Okay, and what I do is I mix this. This is a salve of Fariana, Boswellia fariana, and Catari, Boswellia Catari. Boswellia fariana is excellent for inflammation. Catari is excellent for the skin. So I mix it together in an infusion, then I strain it, then I put some beeswax in it to make it thicker, and then I mix it with shea butter, because I don't want, this is strong, and I don't want it this strong. So I mix it and dilute it with shea butter. And then I put it in something like this. This is 4 ounces. I usually put it in 2 ounces because I want to see how well it helps them. I put their name on it, and we massage it into their hands and into their feet. And what it does for the hands, their hands are always cold. And I recently went to a hospice patient who had gloves on her hands. And I asked her, why are you wearing gloves? And she said, I'm cold. So I said, can I put some of this on your hand and let's see what happens? And she said, sure. And I massaged it into her hand. And within 5 minutes, I went to put the gloves back on. And she said, no, I don't want the gloves. And I said, why? And she said, my hands are so warm and comfortable. I don't need the gloves. So it worked. And we massaged it on her feet, and she actually pulled her socks off. She was wearing these really heavy socks that you wear in below zero weather, and she actually pulled the socks off and said she only needed the blanket. So it does work. So there are so many different things that you can use for the resins, so it's absolutely wonderful. So there is a difference between the resins and the essential oils. The essential oils, as you know, cannot be ingested. For resins, it can be ingested in moderation, but I don't recommend it for hospice patients. The essential oil may interfere with some prescription drugs. Resins don't interfere with any prescription drugs. You must use a carrier oil with the essential oil. You don't need it with the resins because you're infusing it in carrier oil. There are restrictions with dilutions for seniors and children. There's no restrictions for seniors and children, but you should use some common sense. Essential oil should not be used during chemo. There are no restrictions during chemo, but I would still ask your doctor to make sure you can use it. Essential oils are very highly concentrated. Resins are the raw material from the plant, and they are not highly concentrated at all. Essential oils do not contain boswellic acid. It's too hot, it's too heavy a molecule to pass through the distillation. But in the resins, there are 4 of them that do have boswellic acid in them. So that's basically the differences between them. As I said, and I put one in here, I make a transitioning blend. And this is basically for those that are just about to pass. Normally I get a phone call and say, John Doe is at that point. Do you think you could get down here and make an oil for this person? And if I can, I do. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes they can't get to me in time, or sometimes I'm too far away and I just can't go home and just put something, wave my hands up in the air and make a blend. Doesn't work like that. So I basically made a stock blend. And as you could see, the amount of drops that I put in the bottom here, and what I will do is I will take a small little vial of with a dropper on it, because I like the vials with the droppers so the oil doesn't touch the nurse's hands. And she has the patches with her, and this way all she has to do is I make her a bunch of them, so when I can't get there, I make this, and it seems to help, and it relaxes them enough to let go. Lots of times they can't let go because family members won't allow them to let go, and they're so afraid of what the family member is going to feel like that they hold on. This helps them to just relax and let go, and then they die peacefully. So how do you start? Now that you have all the tools I gave you, now what? What do? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to make an assessment form. We call it an intake form. Doctors in the United States call it intake forms. In Canada or other countries, they might call it differently. It should have the patient's name, date of birth, social status, etc. Medicines they're taking, because you need to look up these medicines to make sure they do not interfere. Now, before anything, in Robert Tisserand's book, most of the oils that are in there are oral. I don't even look at the oral. I use it for myself for whether it's oral or not, because I'm not giving them anything oral, but I use it as a guide for myself, because there's really not that much information out there whether or not it actually reacts or doesn't react to someone who's got such a compromised immune system. So I take it as face value. Even if it's for oral, I use it for non-oral or oral. So I'm basically putting it together if I'm when I use a carrier oil with it, or whatever I'm using, whatever blends I make, I take it as that's the way it is, whether it's oral or not. You must put on the list what they're allergic to. If they're allergic to anything, like allergies to plants, shrubs, or trees, anything that they're allergic to, or even fruit. Some people say, okay, I'm allergic to trees and shrubs, but they don't tell you they're allergic to oranges. Well, then you can't use sweet orange. If they're allergic to oranges, you're not going to put sweet orange, because their body is going to smell it and turn it off. Even if it's mixed in a blend, somehow it's going to get out and it's not going to work. A family member you can contact, the smells they like, the smells they don't like. That's where a lot in the allergies work also. Because if they don't like the smell, and let's say you use lavender for sleep and they hate lavender, it's not going to work. Actually, it'll turn them off of what you make completely. Even if it's in a blend, it's going to come out, they're going to smell it. The nurse in charge of the patient, so that you can get in contact with the nurse to find out anything additional you need to know. A line for whether they're on oxygen or not. That determines whether you're going to do a hydrosol or an essential oil. Are they in a single room by themselves or with others? That's very important. And there should be a disclaimer on there to protect you. So if something happens, you're not blamed. And you should also have liability insurance on yourself. Sometimes the hospice organization will put this together for you. They'll include you in their liability. So what do you do first? My feeling is join a hospice or palliative center as a volunteer. Don't go charging in and say, I'm a certified aromatherapist, here I am, hire me because I know everything. Guess what? You don't. If you come in as a volunteer, at least you'll learn the ropes. You also need to understand what hospice and palliative care is about. It is a very rewarding way of helping people, but it's very stressful. I lose at least a patient a day, and I need to know if I can deal with that, if I can separate myself from the patient, because you cannot get attached. If you get attached, this is not the field for you, because you will not be able to handle it. When you need to get, as we say, get your feet wet. You also need to take their course. In the United States, and I don't know how it works in Canada, but in the United States, you have to take a course on hospice and palliative care. You are given a book about this big, and you go home and you have to read the whole book. And in my hospice center, and a lot work the same way, it's not a written test. They don't want you to write it down, because you can write it down anywhere. They want to look at you and see what your answers are, because if you answer wrong, they're not going to hire you, even as a volunteer. So you need to really read the book. You need to really understand so that you can pass this course. So that's very, very important. So now you have been a volunteer, all right? I would say to be a volunteer for at least a year, because you need to really get into this. I would say about after 6 months, you can ask the person who's in charge that you want to get paid for your blends. Otherwise, you're going to go broke. Because if you have to pay once or twice, is no big deal to lay out the money. As you know, the oils are not cheap. And what happens is when you put a blend together, it could cost you anywhere between $20 and $30 to make a blend. If you're making 2 to 3 to 4 a day, that could get very expensive. So you want to work out something with them so that they pay your blends. Now, once you get this done and they see that the blends are working and everybody's hunky-dory and everybody's fine, then you can approach them for a consulting fee. It all depends on what you're looking for. Most of these organizations are nonprofit and they don't pay a lot. So I'm just throwing out an example. If your fee is $200 an hour, they're not going to accept that, because they're on certain restrictions that the government only allows a certain amount for holistic care, and their budget only allows them enough for holistic care. And you're included in that holistic care. So think about what you're going to charge them that's reasonable. I charge them at this point not on a monthly, not on an hourly amount. I charge per patient, which is easier for them to swallow. So every new patient, I will charge them. If I need to give extra blends, if I need to change the blend, I do not charge them extra. The only thing I will charge them is the blend. Because if you're working in an organization that's for profit, and they're making money on you, that's a whole nother story. Then you can ask for a higher consulting fee because they can afford it. But the nonprofit organizations usually cannot. And if you start asking them for ridiculous amounts, they're just going to hand you the door. Now, once everything is taken care of and you're assigned a patient, you need to, at that point, once you've checked their medications, decided on what blends you're going to make, spoke to family members, because it's very important to speak to family members once you get the intake form, because the hospice center will do the intake form 2 ways. They'll either send you the intake form, or they will set you up on your own email account, because you have to sign all the HIPAA rules that are in the United States. As I said, I don't know how they are in Canada. They might be different. And you cannot talk to anybody else other than them and the family members. So once you've gotten this all together, they'll either put you on their console so that you could see all this information, or they will set you up with a special email account so it is sent secure so that you can see all the information about the patient. And once you've gotten this form, you will sit down, you will call the nurse to find out any additional information you need. You will also call the family members, because it's very important to find out from what the patient was like when they were younger. So let's say they love to be, they worked in a barbershop, and they were around all the oils that have to do with a barbershop or a beauty salon. And then you say to yourself, well, they liked all these oils. Maybe I can find oils that will basically make them remember the good times, because that's what you want to do, especially those that have dementia. You want to make sure that they're put into a happy place, because then they're much calmer. And then you look up in the book to see what medicines affect what, so that you could stay away from those oils. Then you make your blends, and then you go down. Most organizations require you, after you've seen the patient, to give them a report and any additional reports. So that's basically what you do once you have put everything together. And I'm basically finished. These are the references that I've used. As you know, I've used Madeline Kirchhoff's information, some of her information, and I still say get her book. It's most important to get her book. And the Essential Oil Safety 2nd edition. The other references are the National Hospital Foundation, and also the other references was part of the hospice organization that I belong to. So I'm ready for questions. I hope I didn't rush that through.
No, we have a few questions here for you.
Okay.
And I'm going to start right at the top. The first question is from Denise, and she says, I am just starting an essential oil program for geriatric and palliative care in the nursing home I work in. What is the best way to start, and is there a limit of the oils I should use?
There's the best way to start as exactly what I basically said here. You need to, if you're not a volunteer already, then you should become a volunteer. There's no limit of oils. You, as an aromatherapist, as a certified aromatherapist, you're trained. I wouldn't use 25 oils, because then you're defeating the purpose. But there are, as an aromatherapist, you're basically trained to know how many oils you should be using.
Okay, our second question was from Carol. She just wants to know if we'll get a copy of the PowerPoint for reference.
I am giving you the PDF.
Perfect.
So you'll have everything. So you don't have to run and write down all the oils that I wrote.
Okay.
Great. Yes, the next question was the same. From Fiona, she says, since rose is so expensive, would rose geranium work as well?
Yes, most definitely. If you can bring out the rose smell, I used rose geranium a lot. I also use rhododendron. I've been coming up with other oils that seem to, through sense of smell, that they smell very similar to rose, and they have been working mixed up in blends. Because I only use rose for transitioning, and only one drop. One drop can overpower the entire blend. I mean, 2 drops. If you put more than 1 drop, forget it. The whole thing smells from rose, and you're not getting any of the benefits of the other oils that are in there. So I only use no more than 1 drop. And I try to make sure that the dropper that I usually use a pipette, because that comes out very tiny. And that's about the size of the oil I'll use, the drop of the oil, because it is so strong. I could put a drop of oil in a cup and you could smell it. My house is a rectangle. You can actually smell it on the other side of the house. That's how strong rose is. So I only use a very small pipette of it.
Perfect. Thank you. We have another question from Nikki, and she says, what is the name of the company that sells the patches, please?
The patches are easy. Let me get a patch. You can look it up online. It is BioEase, BioEsse. That's the company. They have a website also. It's www.bioEase.com. That's their website. And as I said, I like them the best. They're the only ones that it stays on. The rest of them would just fall off.
Great, thank you. Carol was asking the name of the book.
Which book?
I believe Madeline Kirchhoff's book. Madeline is the nurse that wrote the book?
Yeah, let me see if I could go back. Will it go back? Because I have the picture. Let's see. Oh, went too far. Let's go the other way. There we go. This is the book right here. That's exactly what it looks like. That's the book. It's a hardcover book. It's actually, hold that thought 1 second. I will get the book. This is the book. Okay, it is a hardcover book. It's heavy. It actually comes with a little bookmarker so that you could hold your place. She actually wrote in mine. I have her signature in mine. And this is my Bible. Everything you could possibly know about hospice is in here. And the book is excellent. I refer to it every time because, unfortunately, I'm not 20 years old and I can't remember. So if I'm not sure, back to the book I go. So I keep it right above me so that I have it all the time, and I highly recommend it. Nature's Gift, I believe, sells it. And I think Madeline, I don't know if Amazon sells it. I don't know if she put it on Amazon. but you can check. It's complementary nursing and end-of-life care. When you get this PDF, you'll see it on the PDF, so you can actually, you know, look it up that way. And her name is on it. So the book is phenomenal. I think it's one of the best books she wrote. So I definitely highly recommend it. Without it, I'd be lost.
Great, thank you.
Okay, our next question is from Sandra. How do you make the infused frankincense resin?
Okay, I'm going to get you one so you can see. I'm going to give you a visual. Okay. This is infused neglecta. All right. What I do is, this is neglecta. Yes, I have a big thing of it, but this is neglecta. And what I do is I take, and if you go to the frankincense group, we actually have directions in there on how to infuse resins. And what I basically do is I put an ounce of the resin on the bottom here. Just the regular resin. I don't make it into a powder or anything. I just pop the resin in here. And then I put this one happens to have fractionated coconut oil. But I do fractionated coconut oil or I do jojoba. Those are the best two to do it with. And then I put it into a double bath. So I put it into a pot, not on this. I put it into a Pyrex. You know, one of those measuring cup Pyrexes, the ones where the handle is over the pot so that you don't get burnt. And it goes into water on a low boil, very low boil, for about 20 minutes. And then it comes out and I close it. I let it cool, because if you don't, you're going to have it all over your counter. So I allow it to cool. Then I put it in we have a ritual for this. We consider it very magical, because that's what resins are. And I'll put it into a cool, dark place for 58 days. The first day, it sits in the sun for about maybe 7, 8 hours. The second day that you have a full moon, you have to have a full moon. So you can put it in the closet tucked away, and when you know there's a full moon, you take it out. If you have the ability to put it outside where it's not 0 below, then you would put it outside in the full moon. And the best time to do it is at night when you get the brightness of the full moon. And if not, then you put it in a window for the full moon, and it comes back in for the rest of the days. Then you strain it, and that's what you get. This has been strained. So that is infused resins. And as I said, you can, and it's wonderful, it's oily, but you can make it into a salve by adding beeswax, or you can use it just like it is. So this one is neglecta, and it has a wonderful smell, and it's actually mellowing me right now since I just smelled it. So, but as I said, if you join the frankincense group, you just have to answer 3 questions in the frankincense group to get in. And it's a total educational group about frankincense resins. We don't have any drama or anything in the group. It's just education.
Great.
I believe it's the only group out there that is on education of frankincense.
Nice. Well, we have a question from Michelle. What would you recommend for a stroke patient?
Well, there you basically have to talk to the nurse and find out what the problem is. Is he, does Does he have a problem with anxiety because he has, he can't do a lot of the things that he used to do and he's totally frustrated? Then you would make an anxiety blend. Most people, unfortunately, I had a father who had a stroke, and I wasn't into aromatherapy yet. I was a lot younger than I was now. And I don't even think aromatherapy was that popular when I was growing up. And his biggest problem was he couldn't do, and it's very hard for a man, and he couldn't do the things that he normally could do, and he was very stressed and frustrated. Had let's move him up to the now generation, I probably would have made him an inhaler if he could move, or I would have used the spray. Actually used the spray and put it around him to relieve some of his anxiety and stress from having a stroke. You can't, aromatherapy doesn't cure. It just helps. So if it helps him relax and it helps him, cope a little bit with his problem, then you've done a lot.
Perfect, thank you. Our next question is from Brenda, and she says, what have you used when the patient is experiencing agitation prior to passing?
I do the transitioning oils. That's what I basically do. If the nurse can tell me, I'm not a nurse, and yes, I'm trained in a lot of different things that I have to learn. I have to learn if they're on certain, if they're attached to certain things, I need to understand what they are, because if I'm in the room and one of the lights go on, I need to know what to do. Yes, I can't touch the patient, but I need to go out to the nurse to tell her what is going on. So, I forgot what I was going to say. What was the question again? What was the question?
1 second. I have to go back and find it. So what have you used when the patient is experiencing agitation prior to passing?
Okay, so as I said, I will use the transitioning oils. That's basically, the nurse tells me, gives me the information when the person is about to pass. They can tell by their breathing, they can tell by their vital signs. So I will get a phone call, and it could be in the middle, I've gotten it, in the middle of the night, telling me, do you think you could be here by 9 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning? Maybe. And if not, then they have the transitioning oil that I make. So sometimes generics are very good. So that's basically for that.
Great.
Anybody else?
Yeah, we have it's 9:15, so we'll just, sorry folks, if we don't get to your questions, can we send them to you, Robin, for answers afterwards? Or
Sure.
Or
I have on my website, I have a contact page.
Okay, perfect.
And they can go on my website and go to the tab that says contact, and they can ask me there and I'll answer. I might not get back to them immediately, but I definitely will answer them.
Okay, great. So can we do 5 more minutes? So you're good
Sure,
with that?
I'm fine.
Okay.
I ate dinner.
Perfect.
Before.
Our next question is from Lisa. She says, when you have a patient that is in and out of consciousness or demented, how do you determine the oils you will use if they cannot tell you their preference?
By family members. I go straight to family members. I ask brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, and they tell me. I ask them, what did they do in their profession? Usually a spouse can tell me, or a child can tell me. You know, if the spouse is not coherent enough, then their children will tell me. Even cousins will tell me. And they'll give me the background of the patient, and that's how I figure it out. For instance, I had one very similar. The family members did not know what smell she likes. She was a hospice survivor. And when she was little, she sat, and this came from a cousin. I got the telephone number because the husband was dead, so he couldn't give me any information. The daughter lived extremely far away, and she wasn't sure of the information, so she got a hold of her aunt, who gave me the information. And the aunt told me that she lived during the Holocaust, and she was in the gas chambers, and thank God, she was one before she was supposed to be gassed. And she basically, when the camp was what was it called? When the camp was opened up, when the Russians came and opened the camps up, she was sent to family. She had no family. Everybody died. So she was sent to family in the United States, and they took care of her. And then as she got older, she developed lung cancer from all the smells of the gas and everything that happened during that period, and she was put in hospice. The aunt told me when she was a child, she lived in Poland on an orange farm. And she used to sit as a child reading stories to herself and eating oranges. She loved oranges. Well, sweet orange is a very calming oil. Petitgram neroli smells very similar to oranges. So I made her a concoction of, I believe I put, if I remember, I put petitgram in there, sweet orange, and I think I put marjoram in it. And I put a little bit of Boswellia neglecta in the mix. And I sprayed her with it. Now she couldn't talk, she was comatose. And they had to hold her down because she was hurting herself. She basically went back to her past, the bad past. And she was basically scratching her face. And even when they put gloves on her, she was thrashing around and throwing the gloves around. So when I got there, she was in restraints. And her hands were like this and constantly like this. So what I did is I took the blend and I sprayed it all around her. And I put instructions that I wanted her sprayed every 3 to 4 hours. The following day, I get a phone call. You have to come down and see this. So I go down to the nurse, and the nursing home she was in was pretty far from me. But they drove me crazy. You have to come. Her hands that were like this were now like this. They took her out of the restraints. The following day, the nurse called me and said, I took pictures because I don't want you to run down here again. I'm going to show you what she looks like. She was actually totally relaxed and smiling. So the oils do work when you find the right source. She brought herself back to when she was a child in the good place. And that's what got her through. She died about 5 days later, but they told me she died smiling. That's how you have to do it. If you can't get it from a, quote, the patient themselves. And most of the time I don't get it from the patient, because most of the time in hospice, they're not coherent enough to talk to me. The only time I get it is in palliative care, because they're more coherent. They can actually tell me. And usually they sit and talk to me for hours. I usually have to pull myself away from them, because that's all they want to do is talk. So, but hospice is very hard, because most of the people are elderly. I've only had a few that weren't, but most of them are elderly. And what do? You can't get it from the patient, so you have to go to another source. And the best source is a family member.
Great, thank you. I guess last question, Rhonda, pick one, and if we missed your question, folks, again, go to Robin's website and you can ask her there through her contact section.
Okay, I'll just do Tamara's question. Could you tell us which company you use for your frankincense resin?
Your best bet is to go, it depends on the resin. For Qatari and Myrrh and Fariana, I go to Bus Wellness. Their Bus Wellness, I don't know, I think it's .net. They are the best. I have not found anybody who, they get it straight from Somaliland, and it's very fresh. So that's where I buy those. Serrata right now is used for pain and inflammation, and it's very hard to get it because India comes from India, and India has put a lot of restrictions on tariff. So right now it's very hard to get a lot of stuff out of India, especially Serrata. Dan Riegler sells, I believe he has some Serrata, and Sense of Earth, who happen to be in New Jersey, they have the Serrata in stock. So they're a good place for that. Sacra, the best place to get Sacra, in my opinion, is frankincense.net. It's Ryan Bambrick. We call him the king of Sacra because he knows everything you could possibly know about Sacra. So he's actually one of my admins in the frankincense group. So, and we do have a list in our group of those we recommend. Only the reason we recommend them is because people have told us that they haven't had a problem with buying from them. They also are, you only want to buy resins where they do fair trade, because you don't want to buy resins from those that use people as slaves. So, you know, it's very important to buy your resins through fair trade. And the ones that we have on our Facebook page in our files are the ones that only deal with fair trade.
Great. Well, thank you, Robin. I'm going to squeeze in this one question that Denise has asked. She said somebody had suggested using like the little wool pads that, you know, the ones you can get to put on the bottom of your chairs to protect your floor, using those to put a couple of drops of essential oils near the person, on the person. What do you think about those versus your
I don't
patches?
think on the person, because you don't know if they're allergic to wool. That's going to be a very hard call to figure out if they're allergic to wool. Wool also can be very scratchy. So you don't want to put it on them and then they touch it and they get it on. And wool has a habit of pulling. So if you want to do something like that, you can put it on the side with Velcro on the side, if they'll allow you to put it on the side of their dresser, as long as it doesn't pull the paint off or the or whatever they have on the dresser. Sometimes we use cotton balls. We take cotton balls, the organic cotton balls, because you don't want regular cotton balls because they're sprayed with insecticide. So you want to get the organic cotton balls, and we'll put it inside the pillow and put a couple of drops that way. So sometimes that works too. The only problem with that is they change the sheets every day. So there goes that. So that's why I like the spray, because the spray is more permanent. And when it's put in the drawer, in a lot of nursing homes, they don't allow it because of the, not HIPAA, but the Joint Commission that we have here doesn't allow you to put anything that they consider medicine. Even though we don't consider it medicine, they consider it medicine in the drawer for somebody else to get to. So depends on the nursing home. If they're in the private room, they usually allow it. If they're not in a private room, it's put at the nurse's station. So this is easy for the nurse to find. She'll put it in one of her drawers, or she'll put it where she knows she can find, somebody else can find it. Because as you know, nurses change shifts. So if that nurse has left, where is it? So it's usually put in a space where everybody knows where these things are. With wool or something like that, they might not allow it to sit there. And anyway, as I said, once they clean, it's gone. You'd have to put it into the drawer. Now you're going to stink up the whole drawer because it's not covered, which is not exactly why you want to open the drawer and smell the oils. Because to tell you the truth, you don't want anybody else to smell the oils. You only want the patient to smell it. Because what happens if it's on one of these things and somebody walks into the room and they're allergic to lavender, and you're using lavender as part of the blend for your particular patient. Now the person walking in the room is going to get either a headache or is going to get dizzy or something. So you want to keep it as close maintained as possible. When you're spraying them, the initial spray is there, but then it dissipates. The smell is there and then it starts to dissipate. And the only one at that point who's smelling it is the patient. You don't smell it. So that's why I like that, because you run into the other problem of who else walks into the room. As an example, I went into a nursing home and one of the nurses dragged me over to another room. They had put peppermint, 5 drops of peppermint in a diffuser in a patient's room to get rid of the smell, because the patient was constantly soiling himself. Meanwhile, I walked into that room and I almost died. The 5 drops of peppermint, that's a lot of peppermint oil. She kept saying to me, every time we come into this room, we get massive headaches. I said, duh. 5 drops of peppermint would definitely give anybody a headache. I said, why are you doing this? Well, we're doing it to get rid of the smell. I said, to tell you the truth, I'd rather you not use aromatherapy to get rid of the smell. I'd rather you get some kind of a spray, even commercial spray to get rid of the smell, because aromatherapy is not made to get rid of smells. That's not what it's made for. And I said, you're killing everybody else. And I said, and God knows what you're doing to this patient. If you're getting headaches, imagine what he's getting. So that's why you need something confined.
Great. Well, wonderful. Thank you again, Robin. We've got a number of people here that are just saying thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing a beautiful story. I've learned a great deal tonight. Wonderful webinar. Loved it. Thank you very much. So lots of good feedback. Thank you again, Robin.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes. For those of you that are still here, we have it is being recorded, and you will be able to see it when we launch the new website. So we're signing off. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Before you go, close off everybody so I can ask you something.
Sure. See if I can figure out how to do that. Without closing,
Well, it looks like
without
a bunch
closing
of
us
more
off.
jumping off.
Because you still have 10 in the room.
Yeah. Well, I see 23, but I think they're jumping off. I don't know how you get people out.
Oh, the question, I see 19, right.
Yeah, now we're down to 19. Yeah, that's a good question.
There's got a way, I think when you stop the recording, you stop. How did you start people in here?
I had to, it just went to broadcast, and I don't see any options for stopping broadcast. So this is new. I don't know. No.
Yeah, there's got to be a way to stop it, because you and I were talking before you started it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I am going to, I'll stop the recording. If yes, you'll receive an email notification when it's ready.